Hey friends, we're back to talk about Unitarian Universalist practices at home. Today we're going to share a little bit about altars and how to hold what's holy, even when it's not comfortable in the moment. And I think kids have a particular knack for doing that, wouldn't you say, Amy?
Yes, definitely. I wanted to share a story with you about a few years ago, actually several years ago, because my youngest was 3. We were at a memorial service, sort of like celebration after the memorial service at my grandmother's house, who had just passed away. And my son kind of climbed up onto the stairs, going up to the back porch, which was like the highest place you could be in the backyard. And there was tables and chairs and people sitting in the back, all there to celebrate my grandmother. And he got up there and he got everybody's attention and he said, "Great grandma died," and said it really loud. And then he repeated it. He said, "Great grandma died." And he just kept saying it over and over again. And of course, like in that moment as a parent, there's sometimes your kids say things that are like really direct and to the point and kind of obvious. It kind of like makes you freeze for a second and go, "Oh, that's inappropriate. That's not our custom. That's not how we do things," right? And of course, everybody knew, of course, that my grandmother had died there. But my son in his 3-year-old way was just naming that for everybody to hear and for everybody to see, and holding it literally high in that moment. This is what we're here for. Great grandma died. And in a way, making it maybe more real for him, in his 3-year-old interpretation of death, which is not, 3-year-olds have a different interpretation of death at that point, but making it more real. Great grandma died.
Mhm. Yeah, and naming it can sometimes give that anxiety, like you said, for the people around of, oh no, now I have to look at this thing. Now I have to pay attention to this thing that has been scary or sad or uncomfortable. And just by saying it out loud, it centers that and sort of forces us to look at it, which, again, right away, maybe feels really deeply uncomfortable and deeply taboo almost. But at the same time, you know, naming something doesn't make it any more or less real. It just allows us to focus on it at the moment instead of, sometimes the tendency is to kind of hide it away or ignore it. But it always finds its way back to center in some kind of way. And naming it just allows that to happen right away.
Yeah. It's like he was saying, "Stop, look at what's going on right now." I think, lives get really busy. We're pulled in so many different directions. And even while we're grieving and intentionally gathered for the purpose of grieving, we can be pulled in so many different directions. And I'm just thinking about the amount of hard, challenging things that we hold at any given time. What's the time and attention that we give to it? Um, so having something concrete, something visual, something, that you say out loud to call attention once again to what's most important, to what's most holy, to hold it high, maybe even literally, is what altar building is all about. Altars, the root of altar means hold high. Um, and it helps to have in this busy world something to pull you back, something to focus on, some place to lay those visual, concrete reminders of what we value most, what we hold most holy, whether it's someone who has died, or something else to remind us of something else that we value.
Yeah, and concrete things, undeniably benefit kids, having something to feel and sort of explore with your senses instead of it being this nebulous, intangible thought. Having something to hold is really useful, but not just for kids, right? We have lots of visual reminders, even as adults, and reminders of grief in photos that are up on the wall, or other anxiety, the test that you failed or the I voted sticker. Like those things are very much um, pieces of altars that center something and that help hold something. And it doesn't always feel good to run across those, you know, you're cleaning out your closet, you run across something, an old picture that you forgot about. That can be kind of a jarring experience, a jarring moment. But again, just naming it and running across that picture doesn't make it any more or less real. It gives you that moment and that time of just, oh yeah, that was a thing. And I had lots of big feelings about it. And here's that reminder of it. And that can be very powerful, no matter what your age is.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you said, we've got these miniature altars intentionally and unintentionally everywhere in our lives. I was telling you earlier, I'm thinking about the people in my contacts list or on my Facebook friend list that have passed away that I keep there. Because I don't know, it's kind of like a miniature altar, a digital virtual altar of sorts, remembering those folks who have known in my life and have impacted me in my life. So whether we've named these spaces as altars or not, we already have them, right? And so then to sort of take the next step to carve out space intentionally for an altar at home, it can be a profound experience to hold that together as a family. And it doesn't have to be overly complicated or even overly serious, right? Just even setting a few items that are important to you or remind you of things that you hold as holy or that you hold high in your life on the top of a dresser or on a table. And inviting your whole family to be a part of that process can be a really profound experience. It doesn't have to be a huge space. It can be items that are from all over, right? It can be toys, it can be pictures, it can be objects from nature. Just as long as they're things that help you center on the things that you hold as holy to help you find that time out of time to focus in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you said, some of the things that kids often bring to the altars are things like their favorite toys or drawings that they've made, or you know, a cool stone that they found on the walk up to church or something like that. But paired with those, it's always, you know, a deeply meaningful story that they bring with it. You know, this is my favorite toy. It's a car because I love how fast cars go. Well, that's holy, you know, and this is a picture, and I never met my great grandpa, but this is a picture of him. That's also deeply holy. And when kids bring things to their altars that they make, they have such a way of just naming that and deep and difficult stories. And the other people in the room so often do that, you know, the improv thing. Yes, and yes, I hear you. I'm holding your story with you. I'm centering what you're centering, and let's do it together. And that's how we, you know, share those stories together. It's not just about those objects, it's about what they're representing. And that's where things get so meaningful.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's one thing and certainly profound to have a personal altar, right? One that reflects your own stories. But then to take the time to build an altar together of a community, whether that community is the people in your immediate family or the people in your classroom in religious education or you know, other communities that you're a part of, you get to see how these stories really mingle and help support one another, and to put in one place the things that each of us hold as holy. It tells its own story. It's really beautiful to see. And I'm remembering back to some of the classroom altars that we've built together, and just not even having heard the stories behind the objects that were placed at the center on the altar. They still were so beautiful and profound, knowing that there was intention. I'm placing this here because, I'm placing this here because. And that intention building in itself is such an important practice, and something that is beautiful to do as a family. I'd love to hear from each of you if you already have a family altar at home or even an individual altar that you've shared with others in your family. I'd love to see pictures of them. Feel free to send us stories or reflections about your experience building altars. I think we'll each share pictures of our own altars with you all as well. I'm looking forward to seeing what you send in, and we'll talk more with you all next week. Bye, friends.